There are moments in life, moments that slip in quietly, unnoticed at first, just a passing hour, just another breath. But later, when you look back, you realize that was it. That moment, that second, was the beginning of everything changing. You just didn't see it for what it was, not right away. My story starts with one of those nights. It seemed completely ordinary. My stepson, Liam, and I were sitting in the living room, watching a movie, some action flick with bits of romance tucked between the explosions and fistfights. The lights were low, the dishes were done, and the only sound was the dull rhythm of the TV and the occasional creak of the house around us. It had been 2 years since Marcus died, 2 long, slow, quiet years. Since then, this house had held its breath. I'd spent all that time trying to rebuild something inside me, trying to find who I was again. I hadn't realized how much time had gone by, hadn't noticed how much Liam had changed in that time. Or maybe I didn't want to notice. He was stretched out across the couch beside me, long legs crossed, arms slung across the back like he owned the place. And for the first time, I really saw him. His frame had filled out, his jaw was stronger, his voice had dropped. He didn't look like the boy I used to drive to school anymore. He looked grown, too grown, but I pushed that thought away fast. He's my stepson, I told myself. Still, the silence in the room felt oddly loud after that. As the movie played on, Liam shifted slightly. His arm rested closer along the couch. Just a small movement, but I noticed. I wasn't sure if he meant anything by it, or if it was just how he always sat, but suddenly it felt different. I glanced at him, and he was already looking at me. His eyes didn't flinch away. There was something in them, something deep, almost guarded, but honest. I turned my attention back to the screen, trying to calm the sudden flutter in my chest. It's just a movie, I told myself, just an awkward moment. Everyone has them, but my body wasn't convinced. My chest felt tight. My palms were cold, and then, during one of the scenes, a romantic one, he leaned just a little closer, close enough that I could feel the whisper of his breath as it brushed against my cheek. My whole body went still. His hand resting along the back of the couch was now just an inch from my shoulder, too close for me to ignore. Close enough to set my nerves on fire, not because he touched me, but because he might. I hated how aware I suddenly felt of him, of myself, of all the years that separated the versions of us that used to live in this house, and the versions who now sat silently beside one another. "Cassidy," he said, his voice low, barely more than a breath. I turned toward him. My heart pounded so loud I couldn't even hear the movie anymore. "Yes, Liam," I asked softly. My voice shook despite how hard I tried to sound calm. He hesitated, leaning slightly, still close, but not too close. He exhaled through his nose. "I wanted to tell you thank you." Those 2 words landed like a weight in the space between us. "For everything," he added. "Since Marcus died, you didn't have to be there, but you were. You've always been here, for me, and because of you." His gaze locked on mine. I didn't feel alone. His voice held so much sincerity, it hit me deeper than I expected. "Of course, Liam," I said, forcing a gentle smile through the whirlwind going on in my chest. "You're part of this home. I'm glad you're here." He didn't look away, me too. Then his hand pulled back just slightly from the couch, like he suddenly realized exactly how close we were. But his eyes never left mine, and something unspoken passed between us. A fragile thread now stretched between 2 people who had once been family entitled, now sitting towing the edge of something else. Something terrifyingly unfamiliar. I tried to tell myself not to feel anything, that it was just emotions, that we were both just lonely people in a quiet house. But that night, something had cracked open. It refused to close back quietly. Over the next few days, I noticed it, the way Liam began acting differently. He wasn't distant. If anything, he started talking more. During breakfast, his gaze lingered longer. He asked if I needed help rearranging things in the kitchen, offered to run quick errands, started learning where I kept extra blankets and cleaning supplies. He filled space in a house that had once only echoed. That morning, I was sweeping when he stepped in and said, "Cassidy, let me do that." Before I could protest, he gently pulled the broom from my hands and began sweeping himself, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I blinked at him. "You've never done that before," he shrugged. A small grin touched his lips. "I know you handle everything in this house by yourself," he said, meeting my gaze. "You've been doing too much. You're just one woman. Someone needs to help you." Something warm bloomed inside me. I tried not to let it show. "Thank you, Liam," I said, voice quiet. There was a tremble in it I couldn't shake. His words hadn't just surprised me. They'd stirred something, a part of me that had been silent for too long. And as I watched him moving around, the strangest, most confusing thought crossed my mind. I'm no longer mothering a boy. I'm standing across from a man. Had so plainly acknowledged my loneliness struck a deep chord later that day while I was cooking in the kitchen. I felt Liam's eyes on me. He was standing behind me, leaning against the counter, just watching, but these weren't the kind of looks I was used to. His eyes wandered over my body, my hips, my back, my hair. At first, I thought I was imagining it. "No, Cassidy, you're overreacting," I told myself, but I could feel the intensity in his gaze. I did my best to act normal, but deep down I couldn't deny the slight thrill I was feeling. To be honest, I liked it. It had been so long since I'd felt someone's attention on me like that. When Liam left the kitchen, I couldn't help but go to the mirror. I looked at myself in the reflection. Even in my 40s, I was still attractive. I had a slim waist, full hips, and a toned body thanks to regular exercise. My light brown wavy hair fell gracefully over my shoulders, framing my face in a soft way. My breasts, well, they seemed to have forgotten my age. I hadn't looked at myself like this in the mirror in such a long time. In that moment, something stirred inside me. Something was changing. I could feel it. Liam's behavior became more obvious as the days went by. His eyes never left me anymore. Sometimes it was a casual touch, sometimes just a simple word, but I started noticing that he was pushing the boundaries between us. Maybe the worst part was I found myself enjoying it. After what happened in the kitchen that day, as I lay in bed that night, one thought wouldn't leave my mind. Liam wasn't a boy anymore. He had grown into a mature, handsome man. But I never could have guessed how much that realization would excite me, and I knew very soon there would be a moment where all of this would spiral into something impossible to untangle. One evening, I came home after being out, and the sight that greeted me left me breathless. Candles everywhere, flowers, a beautifully set table, and a romantic atmosphere. More than anything, I was captivated by the birthday surprise Liam had prepared. At first, I couldn't believe it was for my birthday. This level of effort seemed more like something you do for a lover. When Liam came into the living room to greet me, I immediately understood why I thought that he was wearing a white shirt and black trousers. I'd never seen him like this before, so put together, so charismatic. It was hard to take my eyes off him. "I wanted to make this day special for you," he said with a faint smile. Then he handed me a box. When I opened it and saw the dress inside, I looked at him in shock. It was a stunning, bold red dress with a soft texture, a deep open back, and a high slit. The moment I saw it, I felt both excitement and hesitation bubbling up inside me. "You bought this for me?" I asked, surprised. "Of course, it's your birthday, and I wanted you to wear something special. I'm sure it'll look amazing on you," he said, his voice calm but his gaze intense. I took the dress and went to my room. Standing in front of the mirror, I felt the soft red fabric brush against my skin, and I experienced something I hadn't felt in a long time as I slipped the dress on. I realized I hadn't worn anything that showcased my figure this beautifully in years. My long legs peeked elegantly through the slit, the curve of my waist and the smooth line of my back perfectly complemented the dress's design. I looked at my reflection, and after a moment of silent observation, I smiled and whispered to myself, "This is crazy. I'm dressing up for Liam, but wow, I really do look stunning in this dress." I studied my reflection more closely, facing truths I had ignored for years. Yes, I was in my late 40s, but this dress made me feel like I was in my 20s again. My skin was still smooth, my light brown hair fell softly around my shoulders, framing my face with elegance, and inside I felt a thrill I hadn't felt in a long time. Taking a deep breath, I left the room. When I walked down to the living room, Liam's eyes locked onto me, and he didn't look away. The way he stared at me made everything even more surreal. There was no missing the admiration in his gaze. Smiling, I said, "I owe this to you. The dress is incredible." But I quickly looked Doa, feeling flustered, feeling self-conscious under Liam's intense gaze. I was right, Liam said, his eyes still glued to me. "You look absolutely stunning in that dress." Hearing such a direct compliment, I felt my heart race, but I tried to brush it off, replying, "You're exaggerating." Liam guided me to the table he had prepared. There were 2 wine glasses and a bottle of red wine sat elegantly in the center. For a moment, I felt like I was in an entirely different scenario. This didn't feel like a birthday celebration. It felt like a romantic dinner, but I didn't say anything because the atmosphere had completely drawn me in. Liam opened the wine and poured it into our glasses. Soft music played in the background, and the wine left a warm sweetness on our tongues. At first, our conversation was about the past, about Marquez, and the changes in our lives. But as the evening went on, I noticed Liam slowly steering the conversation to something much more personal. "Cassidy," he said suddenly, his voice soft, but carrying a serious tone, "how can a woman like you be alone? I just don't get it." I locked eyes with him, completely at a loss for words. "Liam, lonely isn't always a choice. Life has a way of leaving you alone," I said, but his gaze held something deeper. "You don't have to stay alone," he added, lifting his glass to his lips. "A woman like you has needs, Cassidy, and I'm here." The words caught in my throat. What he said touched me far deeper than I was prepared for. I raised my glass and took another sip, but my eyes stayed on Liam. This birthday had stopped being just a celebration. It was turning into something completely different. When Liam set his wine glass down, he never took his eyes off me. "Cassidy, you look absolutely incredible. I wanted this night to be special for you because you deserve it," he said, his voice low but firm. I gave a shy smile, twirling my glass in my hand. "That's really sweet of you to say, Liam, but sometimes I wonder why you're putting in so much effort," I said. Liam raised an eyebrow slightly and replied, "Because you deserve it. You're not just a stepmom, Cassidy. You're so much more than that." His tone carried a depth that both surprised and deeply moved me. For a moment, neither of us looked away. The silence between us only intensified the tension. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything to break the moment. Liam slowly stood up from his seat, walked around the table, and came to my side, resting his hand on the edge of the table. He leaned toward me. "Cassidy, you don't deserve to share your life with someone who doesn't appreciate you. No one should overlook a woman like you," he said. "Liam," I began, but I had no idea what to say. The words were caught in my throat. Just as I was about to speak, Liam leaned in closer to my face. "I can't hide how I feel about this," he said in a whisper, and then his lips met mine. The kiss completely threw me off balance. I felt a passion, a warmth, a connection. I hadn't felt a connection in years, and slid slowly to my waist, pulling me closer to him. What had started as a moment of shock quickly turned into something I couldn't help but respond to. Our lips stayed locked for what felt like an eternity, as though the world had come to a halt. But suddenly reality hit me. I slowly pulled away from Liam, completely out of breath. This isn't right," I said, my voice trembling. "Liam, I need to go to my room, was all I could manage to say. Liam looked at me and took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Cassidy, but I couldn't stop myself from feeling this, he said, his voice calm yet still carrying a fire within it. Without saying anything else, I stood up and hurried to my room. As soon as I entered, I shut the door and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. My heart was racing, and I tried to piece together what had just happened. I sat down on the edge of my bed and looked at the mirror. Even my reflection seemed unable to shake off the weight of that moment. How did this happen? I whispered to myself. The whirlwind in my mind, mixed with the effects of the wine, slowly pulled me into my bed. As soon as my head hit the pillow, the emotions and weight of the evening overwhelmed me, and I drifted off to sleep. But the night wasn't over yet. Sometime later, I heard a faint noise. My eyes fluttered open, and I saw a shadow at the door. The door was slowly opening, and in the dim light, Liam's silhouette appeared. Cassidy, he whispered softly. His voice was low, but there was a certain determination to it. My heart started pounding again as he walked into the room. I know I shouldn't be here, but I can't help it, he said, closing the door behind him. In that moment, the look in Liam's eyes told me that this night wasn't over. The determination in his gaze and the tone of his voice completely consumed me. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. I knew I needed to say something to him. As my eyes locked onto his, suppressed emotion suddenly bubbled to the surface. I know I need to give you an answer, Liam, I said, my voice trembling but laced with raw honesty. I feel the same about you, and I want you. The determination in Liam's eyes completely captivated me. The emotions I had buried for years were no longer something I could hide. My heart raced in my chest, and I knew I had to respond. Taking a deep breath, I steadied my shaking voice. I know I need to give you an answer, Liam, I said, locking my eyes on his. I feel the same way, and I want you. As those words left my lips, the mixture of surprise and happiness on Liam's face gave me a surge of courage. A soft smile played on my lips, and I closed my eyes for a moment to gather myself. Please, before I lose my nerve, I said, my hands moving to my shoulders as I slowly slipped the thin straps of my dress down. The fabric slid off my body and fell to the floor, leaving me standing there as Liam's breath caught in his eyes. Palpable desire fueled the excitement coursing through me. Without hesitation, Liam stepped closer to me, and our lips met again. His kiss was so full of passion that it felt as though the entire world had stopped. His hands slid around my waist, pulling me tightly against him. As the kiss deepened, finally, he gently guided me toward the bed. When we reached the edge, Liam's hands carefully lowered me onto the mattress. As my eyes stayed locked on his, the weight of him over me made me surrender completely. Liam bent down, quickly pulled off his shirt and tossed it aside. Then he placed his knees on the bed and leaned over me. The determination and intensity of desire in his eyes only fueled the fire inside me even more. His fingers slowly slid down my cheek, finding my lips again. In that moment, the boundaries that had been built between us over the years completely vanished. I felt something I hadn't felt in over 2 years. I had fully surrendered. As Liam continued, I gripped the sheets tightly with my hands and closed my eyes. I let myself get lost in the tension and excitement coursing through my body. When I opened my eyes and looked at Liam, seeing his flushed face and broad shoulders, I couldn't resist. I reached my hands to his back, and in a fleeting moment of excitement, I dug my nails into his skin. Liam must have liked it, because his heartbeat sped up even more. I placed my hand over his chest, feeling his racing heart, and at that moment, Liam couldn't hold back any longer and let himself go. We had surrendered to each other, and Liam, breathless, lay down beside me. That day, while talking about romantic things, I had fallen asleep. After this day, my life was going to take a completely different turn. I had just experienced a night where I was happier than I had ever been, and in that moment I realized this was only the beginning. Make sure to listen to what happens next, because this story doesn't end here. Just stay tuned if you've made it this far. I know my story has deeply touched you. There's so much more to share, and you won't want to miss any of it.